Welcome to Brier's Music Showcase. I'm Bryer and welcome back to another video. And in this one, I'm continuing my 70s series, and now we move on to 1973. So, little backstory. So, building up to this series, I did a whole tournament where I wanted to see what was the best year of the 70s. So I did polls, and I did this for weeks, and eventually by the end, 1973 ended up winning. So I don't know if that's biased because 1973 was 50 years ago, which is pretty insane if you think about it, because the albums I'm going to be talking about are albums that either have already turned 50 or are about to turn 50, which is pretty insane to think about. That being said, quick reminders, this series is just me going through the entire 70s decade and just naming my top 5 favorite albums of that year. And of course, I'm only restricted to what I have in my collection. And of course, this is all my opinion. So of course, there's going to be albums I'm going to be leaving out. So that's where you come in the comments below. Let me know your favorite albums of the 1970s. And without further ado, let's begin. Starting off strong with my number 5, I'm going to go with Quadrophenia by The Who. So, this might be a controversial opinion, but I actually prefer this over Tommy. Now, I love Tommy, but to me, the music on here, I just love a lot more. There's a lot more to it. Again, so many interesting themes, and I love the concept to this as well. There's just so much about this that I actually prefer over Tommy. Again, I still love Tommy. So, this was their next big project. This was pretty much the follow-up to Who's Next, and even though Who's Next is a perfect album basically, they probably were thinking like, how were they going to top this? And they did a really good job at following that album up. So I'm not going to go too in depth about the story because, you know, to keep it simple, it's just about this mod who's kind of trying to navigate life basically. Times are changing. He feels kind of alone. You know, he had a girlfriend, but the girlfriend leaves him. His parents don't understand him, and even the people he looked up to are abandoning him. So it's it's kind of depressing, but you know, Pete Townshend's kind of known for that stuff. But yeah, so many incredible songs on here. I'm not going to go through all the songs because there's quite a bit, but you know, The Real Me, just so good. I mean, John Entwistle's bass playing on there just speaks for itself. I love the instrumentals like the title track, Cut My Hair, The Punk and the Godfather's fantastic. Helpless Dancer, I've Had Enough. You have Bellboy, which is, you know, Keith being Keith, of course. That's always kind of a interesting song. But yeah, The Rock, which flows beautifully into the final track, which is Love Reign Over Me. I mean, arguably Roger Daltrey's best vocal performance on an album. Just absolutely stunning. Just absolutely incredible. So yeah, it's got to be number 5 for me. And also, before we continue, almost forgot, let's quickly go over the packaging. So let's quickly open it up. It's one of these old kind of CD, you know, when there's 2 discs, it comes in this jewel case type of thing. So I think both discs are the same, but this is disc 1. And then let me just quickly showcase disc 2, which is here. Then we'll look at the booklet. Pretty thick booklet as well. So here it is. There's the back. Let's see. Have this whole passage here. Gives you the credits there, some photos. So some kind of visual representation on what goes on in the album. Does that look appetizing or what? Here we got the motorcycle. All that trash there. I'm going to try to get through this quickly because this is a pretty big booklet. So again, you can pause if you want to look at them a little bit more. so many pictures. I just got halfway. Oh my god, just so much. It's just basically telling the whole story, basically. Alright, then we finally have some words. We got the lyrics. We just had to go through a whole visual novel just to get there. There we go. Alright, now that is it. Again, number 5, Quadrophenia. Moving on to number 4, we have a very well-known musician. He was part of a very well-known band. Hopefully you've heard of them. They're called the Beatles. And that, of course, is Paul McCartney. More specifically, Paul McCartney and Wings. And here is their album, Band on the Run. Yep, this was pretty much, I guess you can say, Paul's comeback. Because, you know, he released albums before this, but they were always critically panned. Of course, nowadays they are more acclaimed, but back then critics were way harsher on Paul. And so by the time this album came out, all the critics were silent, and it just got tons of praise. And yeah, for good reasons, because it is a terrific album. I mean, this is probably so far my favorite Paul McCartney solo album. Just the songs on here are just classics, like the title track, which is just, I just love it. Just love the different sections, love the parts in there. Then you have Jet, which is a great follow-up song, which goes into Bluebird, which is kind of like a little bit of a ballad, which is just gorgeous. I love Bluebird. Mrs. Vanderbilt, another fantastic track. The bass playing, I mean, Paul McCartney, just what a great bass player at this point. Love it to death. Let Me Roll It, No Words, Picasso's Last Words, and there, again, I've skipped a couple songs, but of course I gotta mention the final song, which is 1985, just a killer closing track to close out a terrific album. So yeah, it had to be on this list. So now let's quickly go over what's inside. So yeah, you see the sticker here. I haven't removed it yet, but I actually had to get this from Germany because I wanted this specific copy of it, because obviously it's part of his archive collection. But there were multiple versions of this. There was like a single disc version, there was a 2-disc version, and I wanted to get the 3-disc version because it had other songs. Because I didn't mention one song, it's called Hell on Wheels, and that song was only on certain, I believe, I can't remember if it was on the UK or the US version, but regardless, this disc, the first disc doesn't include it, but I think it's on disc 3 where it has Hell on Wheels, so you can actually hear it, because that song was only released as a single. But anyhow, so let's look inside what's in this. So it's pretty thick. So I've always been a fan of the archive look, the archive packaging, because of course you have all the discs here. Then when you flip this back, over here you have the booklet. So going back to the discs, here's what they all look like, all 3 of them. I'm trying to remember what they all were, because it includes a bonus CD and a DVD as well, which is kind of interesting. So obviously the booklet is attached to the packaging, so obviously I can't separate it, but we'll just have to roll with this. So of course you have all these photos, more photos there, just a whole gallery. Of course, a lot of shots when he went to Africa, I believe, and all the crazy stuff that went down in there. I believe he got robbed. So that was pretty insane. And here they give you the information. Nice hat, Paul. So disc 1 is the remastered album. Disc 2 has the bonus audio track, which is Hell on Wheels. I said Hell on Wheels. I said Hell on Wheels. It's actually just Hell on Wheels, but of course, when you say it's slow, it's supposed to be a play on words. So yeah, it has that. Let's see, let's keep moving. And the DVD is a bonus film, which comes with many music videos and stuff like that. I believe this is the last page. And yeah, there you go. One more little fun fact. So on the cover, you have you have Paul, of course, in the center, but then you have other people. Probably definitely one of the most well-known for me is, of course, Christopher Lee, who is a horror star icon. So that's kind of cool. So yeah, number 4, Band on the Run by Paul McCartney and Wings. Now we head over to number 3, and this is a classic album to a good majority of people. Usually this album ranks as this artist's best. I wouldn't argue with that, of course. And that album in question is Goodbye Yellow Brick Road by Elton John. Sir Elton John, of course. So, yep, it's a double album. Or, I can't remember, was it double or triple? I always forget. But regardless, it is still a phenomenal album. Of course, he released 2 albums in 1973. He also released Don't Shoot Me, I'm Only the Piano Player. And that was a great album. And so he followed it up with this, and yep, legendary status given in that moment. Of course, classic cover as well. But yeah, there's so many great, phenomenal tracks on here. Of course, it starts out with Funeral for a Friend, which goes into Love Lies Bleeding. Great opening track. It's 11 minutes in total, but yep, it never gets tiring. And then quickly follows up with a classic track, Candle in the Wind. Of course, this is the original version, which was about Marilyn Monroe. Always love that track. Another classic song with Benny and the Jets. Then you have the title track that follows up. So we're 4 songs in, and just classics right there. But then you have some great deep cuts as well, like this song has no title, Gray Seal, I've always liked. The only song I am not particularly fond of is Jamaica Jerk Off. Honestly, I guess we want to be technical, I don't think that song is aged the best. But you know, some people like it, so good on you. I've seen that movie too, another great ballad. Sweet Painted Lady. Then we have the Ballad of Danny Bailey, and really the bass playing on that track is so cool. So yeah, I think it's Dee Murray who does bass, and yeah, I've loved that track. Dirty Little Girl is pretty good. Probably the most underrated song on this album is All the Girls Love Alice. Just the guitar riff by Davy Johnstone is just killer. It's fantastic stuff. And then you have, of course, Your Sister Can't Twist. Then you have the other big classic, Saturday Night's All Right for Fighting, Roy Rogers, Social Disease, and it closes out with a beautiful song with harmony. So I just basically named the whole album there. That's pretty impressive. But yeah, that's just how many songs I like on this album. It's a terrific one. Deserves the status it has accumulated over the decades. So, yep, let's go ahead. Let's look on the inside. I've had 2 versions of this album. I've had an older version and I got a newer version because I think it sounds a little bit better. Definitely sounds a bit clearer. So the disc looks pretty cool. Love that. And it's just yellow on the inside. Not much to say. Let's take out the booklet. So here it is. On the back you have pictures of Elton and the band. Of course, there's Elton right there. Davy Johnstone. There's Bernie Taupin. Dee Murray on bass, and of course Nigel Olsson on drums. What's cool is that each song has a little image that correlates to the lyrics. Of course, with Love Lies Bleeding, there's a little rose and a Bible. Then for Candle in the Wind, you have Marilyn Monroe, and so on and so forth. Alright, short and sweet booklet. Definitely shorter than the other ones I've shown in this video. But regardless, that is my number 3. Now for my number 2, I bet there are some people who expect this one to be my number one because you know how much I love this band, but they're number two, so it's gotta be Queen with the self-titled debut. I know, I was surprised myself, but my number one, it had to be number one, so, but I'll talk about that later. So Queen got their start at this point, and to me personally, this is a terrific debut album. I just love the music on this one. I mean, yeah, you can argue they're still trying to find their unique voice, but I still think it's fantastic because it starts out with Keep Yourself Alive. What a great song to kick off a career with. Just the riff by Brian May, just so iconic, so good. Just right off the bat, he has that tone that just stands out to him. And basically, it's unique to him is what I'm trying to say. But yeah, it goes into Doing All Right. Great slower song, but still has a good hard rock edge. Great King Rat, a great deep cut. My Favorite King, Liar. Liar is one of my favorite songs on this album. One of my favorite Queen songs in general, especially John's bass solo in the middle, just great. The Night Comes Down. Modern Time Rock and Roll, a very short, sweet song by Roger Taylor. Then you have Son and Daughter, another great heavy track for the time. Then you have Jesus, which is pretty good. It does end on a kind of a weak note with the kind of, I mean, personally, I think it's like a demo version of Seven Seas of Rye, but of course it'll be perfected on the next album. But still, it's still a phenomenal album. Again, I love this album to death. I'd say it's probably my top 5. It's fantastic, and I just love the color. It's purple. You have Freddie there, a little figure of him, very cool. You got the spotlight, and you have this early version of the Queen logo, which is kind of nice, simple. But yeah, it's great. Here's the back. This is a 40th anniversary edition from 2011. All right, so let's look on the inside. There's not much to say, honestly. So again, you have a purple disc. Take it out. There you have the most famous Queen logo, of course. And the booklet kind of replicates the original inner sleeve, I'm assuming, and the back cover, and the original back cover as well. So here's the front, and I know this was the original back cover, I believe. Just all these photos of the band, both live and some photo shoots. So you open it up, you have some photos, and what's kind of cool is they actually do kind of stay true to what the original album had, because if you can, hopefully you can see, but you can see John is credited as Deacon John because they want him to sound a bit cooler. But of course John would say, okay, I want my name. So on every album afterward, he would be just John Deacon. So it would have been interesting if we've known him as Deacon John. That would be weird. But then again, Elton John kind of already beat him to it. Anyhow, so you open it up, you've got more of the photos and the lyrics. Here's another really good live shot there. Then you have this nice little photo, of course. All right, again, I know there's people who will be like, I can't believe you didn't make this number 1. Don't worry, Queen. You'll get your just dues in the coming years. Don't worry about it. So on that note, let's first go through some honorable mentions. And of course, at number 1, it had to be this album. It's got to be The Dark Side of the Moon by Pink Floyd. I mean, iconic album cover aside, I mean, this is a perfect album from top to bottom. Just absolutely, this was a huge game changer for me when I was getting into music. Of course, my mom would recommend me Pink Floyd, and of course, this album gets brought up a lot. and had a high, there was definitely hype when I was listening to this album, and to me it totally lives up to it. Just the whole concept of life and all the hardships that comes with it, just so relatable, and the music is just so cool, and yeah, it just had to be. So of course, here's my vinyl copy. This is an actual original pressing, by the way. Very cool. There's the vinyl itself. Let me just take out the sleeve, because we gotta show the gatefold. Sadly, it doesn't. When I got this, it didn't come with the original posters and stickers and stuff like that. But that's okay. As long as I have it, I'm happy. So of course, you have the gatefold with the lyrics and the whole wave here, and on the back. Alright, and let me just put this away, and hold on a sec. Sometimes this is always tough. I'm not cutting this part out. There we go, I got it, almost there. Alright, we'll put you there for now. There we go. And here, let me just showcase my CD copy. This came from a box set I have. So you open it up, you have, of course, pyramids, just fitting the theme. Right, let's take out, let me just showcase the disc. So here it is. Then let's take out the booklet, show what's inside. Alright, so here it is. Again, just gives you all the credits. I mean, you have Speak and Breathe, which of course are great opening track, just sets the tone. On the Run, pretty wild instrumental, but you know, is interesting. Time, of course, just Gilmour's guitar playing on that is just phenomenal. Then you have The Great Gig in the Sky, just one of the greatest instrumental tracks ever, with some of the probably one of the greatest female performance ever. Just I love Claire Torrey's vocals on the track. Just absolutely, oh my god, just gives me shivers every time I hear it. But yeah, then you have Money, which I can actually play on bass. It's pretty cool. Again, another classic. Of course, the original's way better than what Roger's doing, but I'm not gonna get into that. Us and Them, another one of my favorite songs on the album. Then you have the other cool instrumental, Any Color You Like. Then it closes out with Brain Damage and Eclipse. Just a great way to close out the album. But yeah, let's keep moving through this booklet. Of course, it gives you the lyrics. There's that wave again. Audio wave. Yep, again, cliched answer, but it's a good answer. Alright, so there you have it. That's my number one. And thus concludes this 1973 video. So again, in the comments below, let me know some of your favorites from 1973. Again, I always look forward to your comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel if you are new. And until then, I'll see you in the next video. Take care and goodbye for now.